The nice thing about living where I do is that it's just a 2-minute bike ride down to the beach and I have an endless supply of inventory. But Tip has to meet all his friends first.
No. Come on, sweetheart.
And then it's down the steps to the beach for a little bit of hunting, but Tip never meets a stranger, so he has to stop and say hello to everybody he meets and get all the pets, and then it's back to the game plan. Didn't really find that much today until we turned around and went back the other way. We had a lot of shell beds thanks to some offshore storms in the last couple of weeks. We've had some really high tides, lots of cool looking rocks that I always pick up, a lot of broken shells, a lot of really cool small red scallop shells that I also pick up because I think I'm gonna start making some really cool little shell flowers, which I will video and show you all. So I was looking for two things. I was looking for broken scallop shells, and I was looking for oyster shells that I use for my Christmas ornaments and then also for my shell flowers, which are really cool. And this was a really nice shell bed, but I didn't really find that much in it. No olive shells today, lots of rocks though.
Well, no sea glass today, but I did find a couple of good shells, so got some projects in mind. Look how pretty that shell is. Here we go. One piece. One piece. And it's a brown, that's okay. I will take it.
That's always nice when I can find a piece of sea glass to add to my collection. Now it's back up the steps and a quick ride back home so we can get started on some projects. I'm going to be using the shells to create center flower embellishments on two of my wooden starbursts that I've made for upcoming art shows. I'm going to be using my hot glue gun, which is the easiest way that you can use to attach the shells, but you could also use tacky glue or any kind of craft glue like E6000. So I'm using the smaller oyster shells to just create a flower pattern in the center. I'm going to line up 4 at first and then secure those with my hot glue gun. I do tend to use the smaller, flatter oyster shells for these types of projects because they lay a little bit flatter and they're easier to work with. They look more like petals. So I just keep adding the petals basically until all the gaps are filled. And then once all the gaps are filled, I add in more layers on top of that first layer. So this one almost is turning out to look like a dahlia flower, and just made with oyster shells. And it really is turning out so pretty. I'm really glad that I was able to find a lot of these white shells. They're really shiny and really pretty. They're very pearl-like, and they just are coming together so nicely for this project. And adding a few of these gray shells is giving it a little bit of, I don't know, a little bit of texture, a little bit of visual interest. And look how many layers I'm getting on there. I think I've got 3 different layers of these shells. Can I get a 4th layer on there? Can I? Yes, I think I can. And my poor husband, he's trying to watch the football game, and I'm digging through my box of shells. And I think he might be just a little bit annoyed with me. But he did have a brilliant idea to add a little starfish to the center, and I just happen to have one in the same color as the sunburst rays themselves. So let me know what you think about this one. I really love it. And for this next sunburst, I'm going to use all the broken bits of scallop shells that I've been picking up. And I always have plenty of them because no one picks these up. So they are all over the beach, and I pick them up. They make perfect flower petals. This is more like a rose pattern. You see how they are just nesting so perfectly on top of each other, just like rose petals would be. And so the hot glue I'm putting sometimes on the back, sometimes on the bottom, but just however way I can get them secured. That's what I use the hot glue for. Sometimes I will start in the middle with some kind of little olive shell or maybe a cat's eye shell, and then I build from the middle out. But this time I decided to try building from the outside and then coming in. And it's kind of the same process as the oyster shell one. You're just adding shells until you fill the gaps. Use the shell that makes the most sense. Does it look like a flower? Yeah, I think it kind of looks like a flower. It looks like almost like a rose. It does look like a rose or maybe a peony. I don't know, what kind of flower do you think it looks like? I really like it. I really like how it is coming together. I'm not really sure how many shells I used here. Probably maybe 20 or 30 little pieces, and you can see I'm getting progressively smaller and smaller the closer I get to the middle. Still trying to fill the gaps and then trying to find the perfect shell to put in the center. I've tried a couple things, didn't really like them. I ripped that one out because it just didn't look right, and ended up putting a couple of really cute, really tiny scallop shells in the middle that just worked perfectly. What do you think? Does it look like a rose? I do kind of think it looks like a rose. Let me know what you think.